Hey everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of Foulborn Roulette. I spin the wheel, land on this piece of art, and I'll be in fact messing around with 2 items on the wheel. Just because I can, using 2 skills that I've never played, so let's dance using Cyclone minions. And if you like this content, consider subscribing, liking, sharing even, it really helps. Like last time, in the campaign I already start experimenting a bit with some gems that are new to me, such as this animate weapon of self-reflection, which animates your own main hand weapon, but you will have only 7 animated weapons as a result. It looks like this. It's pretty convenient, I will say. I for now put minion damage, ruthless, minion speed and splash damage on them. Here you see that in action, it's not bad. You may also think, what does animate weapon have to do with the dancing dervish? And that, my dear viewer, is a great question indeed. Here is some boss damage. It's very similar to SRS, isn't it? But I do animate a very good weapon. You wouldn't have this at Lake Start, I would think. It is the Goddess Bound, and it does a decent amount of damage. A little later, I have put both the animate weapon and dominating blow in the same 6-link, which is fun. You first summon the weapons and then join the fray with dominating blow. Pizarro is my lab rat for this experiment, and the results are positive. My leveling looks a bit like this, shield charging, summoning the occasional weapon, and then they take care of business. I do this until I reach level 44, until I can equip the Foulborn Jorhast Blacksteel, something I was very keen to try out, because this is a double Foulborn influence item. It doubles the number of animated weapons, so now it is 14, and with unleashed support, similar to SRS once again, it is not a drag to cast 14 of these, and these really do a boatload of damage. I know it's a twink, but still. I put Herald of Purity into the build as well, more minions basically for free, and it is hammer time. This is incredibly smooth leveling and a lot of fun too, with 14 flying hammers around me. At level 59, I can equip the Foulborn Dancing Dervish. The Foulborn version deals less physical damage, but has 1 to 777 flat lightning damage added instead. And it is a super fun item, because every melee hit counts as a rampage kill, and after triggering rampage, which requires 15 of those stacks, so 15 melee hits, you lose the weapon. Effectively the weapon slots are completely disabled, and it is wielded instead by 2 dancing dervishes, which are 2 minions that constantly cyclone and remain doing so as long as rampage is active. You can support them with 6 support gems that you can all slot in the weapon. I tried a bunch of stuff in Path of Building, and they also scale with minion stuff and with anything that would work on Cyclone, I presume. The support gems don't need to be linked, and here they are, tearing up the place. While all of this is going on, the entire weapon slot is disabled, as I previously mentioned, meaning you can only use unarmed attacks. At that same level 59, I equip a Gravebind as well, making minion kills count as my own instead. This means Herald of Purity will proc automatically, turning this into some auto-bomber idea. I slap a few random support gems on the Dervish for now, and this works like a charm. With an automated convocation, they return to me, unlike SRS minions for example, and in my hideout I slot in a few more supports that make sense, at least to me, such as volatility, faster attacks, elemental damage with attacks, and I'm a little wary to recolor this item. I think it is quite rare that there's only 1 green slot on there, and green support gems are horrible for Dancing Dervish in my opinion, so I'm just sticking to these colors and slot in whatever support makes sense to me. To start this rampaging of the Dancing Dervish, I have Dominating Blow at this point, which works, although it does put me in melee range. I later solve this with Ancestral Call, giving me a bit of range. And from here on out, I'm basically full auto-bombing my way through the rest of the campaign. One more interesting thing I discovered is that on bosses, I can still just use animate weapon instead of the dervish for single target. They don't trigger rampage after all, and 7 animated 2-handed swords do a lot of damage as it turns out. A little showcase of that is here at the Celestial Sisters. There's one thing to work on still, and that is tankiness. I'm pretty squishy. Apart from that though, I think you can see the archetype here. The main cores are these two dancing dervishes with Cyclone, and I'm just supporting them in a few ways with either golems or Herald of Purity, which doesn't benefit them all that much to be honest. And of course you could also add specters or an animate guardian. There's plenty of options, but the core idea is there. Dancing dervish in the main role and then some supporting cast around it. However, I also had some other plans that I wanted to test. The animate weapon industry I was playing with earlier in the campaign, and in general reading the wiki pages on all of these different items got me thinking. In particular about the chains of command, a fairly complicated item I feel, but at this point in the league I dropped a bunch of them. One thing that stood out before I go into the item itself is that the dancing dervish are considered manifested minions, meaning they are not disabled by the chains of command. This item, among other things, disables any minion type that isn't animated or manifested. So in my mind, this was a brilliant strategy, manifested dervish and an animated guardian who would even spawn animated weapons. So I pulled out the biggest bonk stick that I dropped this league, which the animate guardian would then start animating on kill. I got a bunch of other animate guardian gear out as well. I've been playing SRS Guardian for hundreds of hours at this point, so I have a lot of these things. I removed all other minion skills as those cannot be used. That includes, by the way, the Sentinel of Radiance and the relics from my Ascendancy, throwing me in a deep existential crisis, because if this was the idea, then why did I pick a Guardian? My dear viewer, that is a great question indeed. After some time, I have acquired old gear, I respec my Guardian to something that is at least somewhat useful. I even take the Shrine node, it is Poverty League, I heard them say, and this is truly an abysmal node. It does allow me to slot in a few defensive auras though, because of the reservation, so now I have Purity of Elements, Discipline, Vitality and Determination. That's gotta count for something, right? Spoiler alert, it didn't count for shit. I needed the Animate Guardian to survive, so I linked it to Minion Life, Meat Shield, Brutality, Multi-Strike and Melee Physical Damage. I'm aware the synergy with the elemental hit-based dervish is lacking. I take the breathing jar to help spawn some animated weapons, I create a PoE regex of map mods that I don't want to run, and it is time for the first test, a tier 14 Maven Witnessed map. I drop all the AG gear on the ground, have him pick it up, and I think now is a good time to talk about the chains of command. I already told you it disables most minions, except animated and manifested minions. It does two more things though. First, it spawns the main hand of the animated guardian's weapon as animated weapons if he kills or sometimes he hits something. As far as I know, there is no way to support these animated weapons with support gems, so they will just be his animated weapons, but you can have a bunch of them. Also, they respond to Convocate, I realized, and the more weapons that are out there, the more damage the animated guardian does. Third and last, it makes animated and manifested minions, so all my minions do automatic splash damage, which is in theory great for clear, and once in the map it works for the most part. I don't think the melee splash works on Dancing Dervish, perhaps because it's a channeled skill and not a strike or something, and there are some animated weapons being generated, although not a whole lot from the Animate Guardian. I later realized this is likely because I still have a Gravebind equipped, so I am stealing my minions' kills. But otherwise, because I will fix that later, I am not like too thrilled with all of this. I do try a few things. First, I give a Gravebind to my Animate Guardian, so it should trigger for him all of these kills, and thus he will animate weapons, which works as you can see. It is a slow startup though, it takes a while to ramp and get those out, and I feel without a bunch of animated weapons the build feels quite weak. Not to speak of me constantly dying, but you know, that's a different topic. Another issue is that I don't have a skill like Dominating Blow anymore to properly trigger the Dancing Dervishes. I am now reliant on auto-attacking monsters, which feels pretty bad of course. Once everything gets rolling and dancing and bonking, it does look pretty decent, but there are a lot of prerequisites that you must meet before you reach this state. I am still scaling a bunch of gems and levels, that's all true, but I feel I have paid a huge opportunity cost and I'm not sure this is worth it at all. Also, while the Dancing Dervish are still allowed with the chains of command, there's otherwise very little synergy between the Animate Guardian and the Dancing Dervish, so to speak. Plus, the animated weapons of the Animate Guardian aren't aggressive, so they stick to me when I convocate, which is by the way also true for the Animate Guardian itself thanks to Meat Shield. So I either have to stand on top of the boss itself, which gets me killed, or I'm just having a watch party with my Mega Bonk Animate Guardian and his homie weapons as the Dancing Dervish do all of the dirty work. I tried giving the Animate Guardian other support gems, but then the guy just dies. Reason for that is because I'm not leveling minion skills in this build. I do incorporate another bit of tech as unarmed skills still work, so I use the Doriani's gloves, which are lightning attacks, so there is some synergy. But just like last time, I feel there's too much cooking going on, and the build lacks coherence and any sort of logic. So it was worth a try, but I'm not happy, so it's back to the drawing board. I'm going back to what I've basically been doing until the end of the campaign, where Dancing Dervish are the main course. First, I end my existential crisis and take decent Guardian nodes again, including the Sentinel and the Relics. That's a lot of elemental damage that synergizes very well with the Dancing Dervish. Then it's time for a proper 6-link and I land on this thing, probably from the tree. It's got decent armor, energy shield, stats. The Gravebind is back in, although that'll be temporary. The Crown of the Inward Eye, that means tons of life, mana and energy shield. There's not much else, but for now that's fine. I contemplate a bit what main skill to slot into the chest, but ultimately opt for Dominating Blow once more. The support gems I might get into a little bit later. I take golems once again, although also these will be leaving shortly after because they just keep dying on me. The main reason still is, like I just told you, that I'm not scaling minion levels, as +1 minion skills doesn't impact Dancing Dervish. Their level is set at 15. That means, however, other minions are a bit weaker. This is another reason to take Dominating Blow, as those minions aren't permanent either way, so their level matters a bit less, at least for their survivability. Here's what that looks like in maps, after I fixed and crafted and colored all the gear pieces. It is infinitely easier to get everything rolling, that is one thing. Damage still isn't high, but I have confidence that'll come once gems and I level up. I am only level 75 at this point. And Dominating Blow also works when unarmed, meaning I can still summon those minions even though my weapon slots are disabled. Tankiness does remain a concern, but just as with the damage, levels will fix that to some extent. In the next map, Temple, I think the foundation for the build is definitely there. I like that I have at least some role to play in this whole ordeal, which is slapping enemies in the face with my elderly fists to create minions, while the rest of my army is just on this automated rampage mission. It's quite satisfying actually. Now I just need to improve the overall quality of this whole thing. One improvement is getting Ancestral Call for Dominating Blow. This allows me to hit enemies from a distance rather than slapping them in the face right in front of them. I'd rather slap them in the face from a distance. Another is a bit of a respec of the tree, optimizing some pathing, getting endurance charges when I'm being hit via Enduring Composure on a small cluster jewel, and I go for extra charges. This increases tankiness significantly. I improve a few Abyss jewels as well. I run another map, it is a tier 16 at this point, and it's getting smoother and smoother. I take more defensive nodes, get more upgraded Abyss jewels. I'm level 80, so I can equip the crafts, the max level crafts, meaning that I take defensive crafts with shield generation, the one that gives a shield on missing life, and I'm running life tap on my convocation, so that works. Plus I will take the one which provides a shield when you inflict exposure, which I do via my Eldritch Implicit on my gloves. I run a small test with some helmets. First, the Hallowed Monarch, a suggestion from chat while I was streaming. When my internet allows me, I will do that via YouTube and Twitch. This allows you to set up a link to a minion with a skill like Flame Link, and the minion then effectively has a headhunter, stealing rare monsters' modifiers. That's fun in theory. It's impossible to target the Dancing Dervish in practice. These guys are, first of all over the place, and next to that, with so many other minions in my army, it's very hard to target. If I accidentally target a golem, I die, because my golems keep dying on me. This is a fun item, but I think it requires a better setup and less minions to properly work. I try Ancient Skull as well, but that just kills my whole army except Dancing Dervish, who are pretty much indestructible. Ultimately, I just settle for a nice fractured base that I can craft on using Hardy Juice and essences. It's got good res, a ton of life, it's a good base. I craft more defenses, slam even some rarity on there, and it's a nice item. I fixed some more resistances by crafting Abyss Jewels with resistances and slotting those in the Darkness Enthroned with a 95% roll. I improved several support gems for the Dancing Dervish, improving their damage output significantly. I'm still experimenting a bit with the support gems to see what feels good. Someone in chat suggested to use the Hungry Loop for basically a free 5 link. I liked that idea quite a bit. The ring consumes up to 4 support gems and can do so once the gem is level 19, slotted into the ring and then levels up. I start with Feeding Frenzy over here, up next is Minion Life, a while later Minion Shield, at which point I already slot in my Animate Guardian, the Smiting Transfigured version using the same gear as before. I just gave him an SNF's glove for explosions. Much later in the playthrough I will add the final gem Elemental Army for lightning exposure and resistances. I get some more mana reservation efficiency, Divine Shield as a defensive layer, and Resolute Technique so I don't miss my dominating blows anymore. Not sure the latter is needed, but still. I do the final lab. I have imported my build in Path of Building at this point at level 94 to check support gems and decided to replace added lightning damage for awakened lightning penetration for the Dancing Dervish. I make sure to craft Abyss Jewels with tier 2 lightning damage for minions or higher, unless it is a utility Abyss Jewel with blind and taunt. Upgrading these jewels is overall a very significant improvement. With the help of Google AI, I figure out Dancing Dervish are in fact constructs, meaning that the hulking miscreation Spectre buff would work on them. That is a significant upgrade as well. Ritual provides more useful corpses. Here is a Perfect Warlord, meaning that I now run that hulking miscreation, a Forced Warrior, and the Perfect Warlord for endurance charges and vitality. This also means that I can spec out of Enduring Composure and use those passive points elsewhere. Ritual even provides a Doriani's prototype, which could be massive for the build if I had a way to fix the downsides, or if I had a homie. I reach level 95, the highest that I will get to this run. I find an Aegis Aurora from Map Runners, another Perfect Warlord from Ritual, and I will end the video with some thoughts and several showcases. I really wanted to make this weapon work because it's just such a cool design, and I'm fairly happy with the outcome. I suppose there are better ways to completely boost the Dancing Dervish, but in my case I opted simply for a more hybrid approach. I think that is also a more realistic approach in Solo Self-Found. Nonetheless, the dancers are the star of this episode, and their constant cycloning supported by SNF's explosions is very satisfying. If you just opt to do basically nothing, they still pop off and you have an auto-bomber. I did weave in some dominating blows though here and there. I feel that the main downside of the build, at least the way I made it, is that the level of Dancing Dervish is fixed at level 15, meaning that you can skill them only so much. Normally, minions gain massive scaling from minion levels, but in this case they don't. And while 6 support gems are good, 6 minion levels would likely be better. As a result, I think you'll hit a cap sooner or later, after which it becomes harder and harder to push for more damage and keep a somewhat balanced build at the same time. Here, in Toxic Sewer map, it's very comfortable. A somewhat juicy tier 16, the Dervish demolish the whole screen, it's very enjoyable. There's way less clicking compared to my own SRS Guardian for example, but also way less damage and less tankiness. It pales in comparison in terms of clear to the Death's Oath, another character that I made recently. It sits somewhere in the middle, but I do like how zoomy this build still is, especially for a summoner. In SSF at least, in my experience, this amount of movement speed, attack speed and clear speed isn't something that you see all that often on a summoner once more. And I feel it is sort of the selling point of the build and kind of the main perk of the design of this weapon. You're also not typically sitting on 1000 rampaging stacks, so that's kind of fun as well. Taking this thing into open maps, that isn't really that much of a difference either. This map, however, is a very juicy tier 16.5, but I do feel you can still quite comfortably clear it. It just takes a little while longer. Here the damage cap is more noticeable. Swap it out for a regular tier 16 jungle valley and the difference in clear speed is huge. If what you like to do is simply farm regular tier 16s or maybe do some Maven boss rushing or slightly juiced tier 16.5s, this build might be exactly what you're looking for. Or this archetype, I should say. This isn't a build guide, clearly. My last showcase will be the Minotaur. I think a decent comparison. People like to kill Minotaurs in their showcases for some reason, so here you go. And I would say this is completely fine. Boss damage is pretty solid. It doesn't take a very long time for him to go down. I can live with this for sure. I do think, however, that content that is much more difficult than this is going to be less and less fun the more you choose it. Also because you'll start dying, because despite my efforts to make this a balanced character, wielding a big two-handed sword and having no block is definitely a bit of a challenge. You will also notice I didn't incorporate an offering into the build. That would have likely increased DPS significantly, however it would have also meant getting rid of some of the automated spells like Convocation and Steel Skin, and I didn't want to give up that quality of life. As per usual though, feel free to tinker of course with the PoE that I will be providing. You can definitely make improvements, I'm sure of that. Finally, I would like to go over some of those stats in the path of building next to this gameplay to give you an idea in terms of numbers. I will post it as well, as I just said. According to Path of Building, I have only 30,000 effective hit pool, without flasks and without steel skin. This is a little bit deceptive because, for example, taunt on the enemies isn't calculated, and neither are the grafts providing significant shields. In my case, these are up pretty much all the time, effectively doubling or maybe even more my effective hit pool. Still, even if it is 70k EHP, which I feel is more accurate, this still isn't an awful lot of health. On the flip side, I did manage to be ailment immune, bleeding immune, and that is decent quality of life as well. Damage numbers on average, it's about 3 million DPS. That feels about right. I would say by just playing this and having played quite a few builds at this point, that is a fairly, accurate description, I think. 3 million seems about right. It is plenty for mapping and map bossing and Maven boss rushing, but you can see why more juiced content tends to be a little bit more problematic. And that is it for this episode. I have some other content cooking as well for PoE 1, some strategy guides, and I will be covering PoE 2 as well. So don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video if you want. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. You can also watch me here stream and on Twitch if you want, twitch.tv/Thyworm. See you soon. Love you all. Bye bye.